So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give an overview of Cisco Workflows. When you first log into the system, you'll be presented with this dashboard, and it probably will land on the Automation Hub for the first time. After that, I'll probably remember where you left off. Within the Automation Hub, you have various different widgets here which allow for you to add existing sets of workflow collections to your workspace. On the left-hand side, you have a navigation bar, and this navigation bar can be manipulated, but it starts off at the Automation Hub where you can see these various different widgets. Below that, a dashboard, which you can customize. And then below that, a workspace. And then within the workspace, you have workflows, tasks, and data types. Data types are for variable manipulation. Tasks are various different tasks that you might have created, and workflows are the workflows that you will be working on. So if I was to click on workflows, for instance, you'll see the workflows that I have built out or added to my workspace, okay? And within that, there may be folders and workflows within folders, and you can nest these things. So I can have a folder within a folder and consequently more workflows. On the tasks side, you will have the various tasks that you've created. And on the data types side, these would be your data types that you will be working with. Okay, I haven't created any of those. There is a run monitor, which allows for you to see the state of any of the workflows or tasks that you've been working on. And you can go back to that specific task and see how whether it ran, completed, did what it was supposed to do. And then, of course, you can go to the details of it and see all of the inputs that were used, as well as any of the variables and the state of those variables. So here I have an API body that was created, and you can see here I was manipulating a VLAN. Targets are where we align systems that we're going to be talking to. For instance, I might have a REST connector to GitHub or to OpenWeather API. I can have SSH connectors to various equipment, and I can have connections to platforms like Catalyst Center, for instance. Okay. This can be made through an assist box. You can see here I have a Cisco assist box. This is a lightweight OVA that's loaded on-prem and allows for tunneled access from the cloud entity of workflows down towards the on-prem environment. And so if I was to look at this switch, you'll see that this switch is connected to via the Cisco Assist box. Okay, so some of these things will be targeted through the Cisco Assist, some of them won't. Catalyst Center, for instance, is connected to via the Cisco Assist. And I have a couple of these targets here that I was playing around with. You'll see that Catalyst Center is there. You'll see that I have a REST API call adapter for Catalyst Center that I was playing around with, and that also uses the Cisco Assist. So anything towards the inside of your on-prem environment might use the Cisco Assist. To something that was external, right, it would be a direct connection. And so this allows you to connect to on-prem and cloud entities with some ease. There's an event logging system, and of course, an administration suite allowing for you to manipulate groups, roles, etc. I'm going to go back to workspaces and into workflows for a second to give a quick overview of a workflow. So a workflow, you can get into it many different ways through workspace and then through workflows here. You'll see on this tab, whilst looking at this workflow, task one here, I do have a drop-down menu on the right-hand side that allows me to get the details, edit, publish, run the workflow, or move it, right? So I can move it around. I can move it within this folder or a subfolder or any other folder if I need to. And I can export it as well. So export and import workflows if needed. Okay. I can also duplicate these and I can clone them. Cloning can be done from the edit page. So if I come into edit this workflow, you'll see that it looks like a flow chart. Okay, so there's a start, and there is at the bottom, way down at the bottom of this, there is a success and a failed event. So you can create logic so that if there's a failure, you get some kind of a notification. Mine have been all made to pass to some extent or another. And so this allows for us to create a flowchart with built-in logic. On the left-hand side, you'll see tasks, workflows, and operations. There's a bunch of built-in tasks that you can use with regard to Catalyst Center or to SD-WAN or Identity Services Engine and so forth. And so when you start to look into these subtasks, you'll see various different elements that you can drag in and add to any of these green pluses. Okay. There are also some executors, and executors are basically the ones that you want to define yourself. So if I want to run a playbook from Ansible, or I want to do a PowerShell within Windows, or an SSH command, or I want to do a REST connection, I am going to use one of these executors. Okay. There are some core tasks here which are important. There's a sleep task, a set workflow variable task, and an invoke inline JavaScript task. There's some data transformation for JSON and text that have been added. So you can parse JSON, for instance. There are some text manipulations now that you can use. And from a general perspective, we have some find methodologies and so forth. So this allows you to drag these elements in and manipulate data as you might need to. Okay. From a logical perspective, under operations, there is conditional tasks. And a conditional task allows for you to do an if type logic, right? So if something exists, then maybe yes or no, and I have various different things that I might do as a result of that. There's some looping, a parallel loop and a serial loop, and there are some actions. So if I need to have a user action, which I define where I have to have somebody actually type something in or something like that, I'd use an action. My workflows that I'm going to create, I can actually build in on the Workflows tab so that they appear inside of a menu. And so this is what I've done here, right? I've got one that's called Build Hierarchy, which is what we're looking at. And so these elements in here are all added to that workflow. And workflows can exist inside workflows. So you'll see here that I have an odd-looking element, and this is actually a workflow. So you can see here when I click on it, I get this open workflow button, which allows me to navigate to that sub workflow, right? So if I click on that, I will get moved over to that sub workflow and I can see what it's doing and how it works, okay? To get back, I just use the breadcrumb and that will take me back to the original page. From a perspective of looking at each one of these workflows, they will have inputs, okay, and they will have outputs and variables. Inputs might be as simple as just targeting something, okay? Outputs, we might want to save the information to a variable, right? And so this allows for us to manipulate data as we might need to throughout the course of this. You can use Go template language to manipulate data if you want to. Obviously, we spoke about these subtasks here, which allows us to actually manipulate data from a JSON perspective if we might want to. So if I go to the core tasks, we've got some core tasks there, but we have a data transformation task now for JSON, which allows us to transform certain things. And we also have a text manipulation that we can do. Okay. So we've got a lot of different bits and pieces on how we might use this, and so how this might allow us to build out a logical flow which will carry out a specific task. Here we're creating a site, so we're getting all the sites on Catalyst Center. Then we interrogate it and ask if the area that we're trying to create exists. If it does, then we ask if the building exists. If it does, and so forth, right? So it continues going down, and you can see how this works. If the building doesn't exist or the area doesn't exist, then there's a flow that says, oh, if the building doesn't exist, then I'm going to create the building, okay? And so this allows for you to build a logical flow, which will always work. Testing out to see if something exists, and then if it doesn't exist, adding it. I didn't build any delete information into these flows for the simple purpose that my paradigm was to add only things to Catalyst Center, never delete them. If you needed to delete them, then you would go and you would manually do that. So that's a little bit of an overview into workflows. With each one of these, you're going to get a list of variables that you might use inside of the workflow. This is where you would build out those variables, whether they happen to be lists or they happen to be, text strings or integers. And so this allows for you to build out a form. And this form can then be used to fill in the information when you are using the workflow. Workflow variables, these are used to make data transformation to. And workflow outputs, these are the information that you want to either pass on to another workflow or you might want to display at the end for success. So that's a little bit of an overview into workflows. We will now move on to the next demo.